Alright guys, welcome to the channel. We are here again today with another firearms video, and today we're going to talk about 22 long rifle in the rifle form. You can get a 22 pistol, we'll cover them on a later date, but today we're going to talk about in the rifle form, 3 different types of rifles and basically the differences between them and maybe performance between them. Which one you would like better. 2 of them are set up for optics, 1 of them is set up for iron sights. So we'll kind of try not to cheat a little bit. We'll shoot this one a little bit through iron sights and then the optics, because I have it set up so you can see underneath the scope. The 1022 here we have just set up so you can see through the scope. But first I want to talk about the Marlin 60. The Marlin 60 has been around for a long time. All of our grandfathers probably owned one. This is one of the weapons that you get when you're really young, and it's essentially a lot of people's first firearm, besides like a BB gun. It's semi-automatic. It uses a tube feed system and a lever, catch here, where you can send the round back and forth. It has the push button style safety, and I kind of like the gold trigger. It adds a little bit of flavor to it. You can customize these just like anything else. They sell polymer stocks and everything like that. But I actually got this weapon for $50, so I like it the way it is. It's really nice. It shoots really, really good. And I'll showcase that here in a little bit. You ever have interactions with a Marlin?
No. I mean, maybe you can talk as to, because of the size of the cartridge, do you think you can talk about why someone would need something like at this caliber? Like what are the advantages and disadvantages of using a 22 caliber?
Well, sound. That's probably the biggest thing. You can fire a 22 without hearing protection. It's like as loud as a firecracker. Small game. You could shoot squirrels, rabbits, nuisance pets. I've even seen boar killed with a 22 long rifle if you shoot it in the right spot, like behind the eye, in the temple. The 22 is essentially just like an AR round. It's just not as fast. It's almost the same. Around 40 grains each bullet is, and you get like, depending on they sell subsonic rounds and stuff like that, but you could shoot like 1,200 feet per second. I've had this shooting out to 200 yards. I usually don't shoot that far because I have it set up if there was some nuisance in the backyard here, like a fox or something. But everything else that's in this woods, we have a bigger caliber for. There's a cheap leaper sight on here.
How's that mounted?
It's mounted with a raised pinch ring. They have that channel right here on the top. It's not like a Picatinny rail. It's more like 2 grooves, and then you have to get this sight. They sell a high one like this and then a low one. I chose to get the high one because it adds the option of looking underneath the scope and still utilizing the iron sights. And for me that's important, because if this was sighted in for 200 yards and something was close, you could still put it on target with that without changing anything, or using Kentucky windage, just aiming somewhere else
randomly. Okay.
So that's that. Like I said, they've been around for a long time, and they're pretty cheap. You can get them 100, 150 bucks, less than 200. Now we're going to talk about the Ruger 1022. The Ruger 1022 is also a very popular firearm, mainly because it's similar to the Marlin 60, where it takes the 22 round, but it uses a magazine. A lot of people like this because you can get extended magazines with lots of rounds. You can use drums. They sell a little bit of everything. They are fully customizable, just like the Marlin. This right here has a synthetic stock on it, which makes it light.
And you bought it with the stock, and also
Yep, came just like this.
Okay.
I want to say the firearm store that we bought this from sold it without the optic on it, but we purchased the optic at the same time, and then he bore sighted it, so right there in the store. So we bought it just like this. This is like a 6 power scope. It's nothing crazy. This firearm, with my experience, isn't as accurate as the Marlin 60, but we'll show you that. It's not per se the 200 yard gun, but you can certainly fire that far, just with a little bit less accuracy. At 100 yards, 50 yards, it's dead on. I really like this. Fires as fast as you can pull the trigger. It uses that push button safety as well. And then just like on the AK that we just showcased in the last video, has that flip style magazine release. You can just pop it right out. It does have the setup for the Picatinny rail, so you could throw a red dot on here, any scope, a light, laser. They sell different fronts for it. You can get Picatinny rails on the side if you still wanted to do that. If you were varmint hunting at night, you could do night vision, a bipod. It's really user friendly and up to the individual shooter as to what you would like. So it's a favorite firearm of mine, but I would say it has a different purpose than the Marlin, because the Marlin will just reach out and touch you a little bit further. You had any experience with the Ruger?
No, I don't have any particular experience with 22s. Just out of curiosity, do you know the barrel length?
No, I do not. I could I'll leave that information. I'll bring it up on the screen right now because we'll measure it later. But you can definitely tell that the barrel length is longer on the Marlin. Alright, so you can definitely tell that the barrel is longer on the Marlin than the Ruger 1022.
Yeah, it looks almost like 4 inches, maybe 3.5.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 inches, you know. You really only need 2 inches. That's all you need. That gets the job done.
That's good to know.
Alright, so that being said,
this is my favorite, by the way, just from the nostalgia perspective.
You haven't even shot it yet.
I just think it looks cool.
It looks cool. So now we're going to bring up, this is called the Henry Classic. It is chambered in 22. You can get this in various calibers as well. But as he stated, just the nostalgic look of it. It's reminiscent of the 1800 style Henry rifles. It's a different company now, but they kind of make it historically accurate to a point with adding modern features. It does have that rail, that pinch rail, just like the Marlin does. So if you were to add optics to it, I think that would kind of take away from the look of the gun, though.
Yeah, but I'm running one of these in Call of Duty. That's what, that could be really why I really like it. But also, I mean, I heard before that they had some quality issues with some of the manufacturers that were repeating
With
this.
the early models, or,
Yeah.
or like manufacturers trying to mimic this.
recreate them now.
Yeah, Henry's an American-made company, and they pride themselves on craftsmanship, the action, and you'll see the action's really smooth. The trigger's nice. It uses, like I said, the lever, and then with that, this bolt goes back and cocks it automatically. So every time you bring that up, it's ready to fire. Really, really nice weapon. This is tube fed as well. A lot of their guns are tube fed, basically just because that's the style they like. Some of them have the loading port here on the side for you to throw the rounds in the side. To again, bring back that classic look. Yeah, so you would flip this upside down. You would turn that screw and then pull it out. And then when you pull it out, there's a brass rod on the inside. You're going to see an orange like spring guide in there. You see that?
Yeah.
So once you get it that far, you just kind of tilt it up a little bit and throw the rounds in there until they slide down.
Listen, you're going to have to excuse my ignorance. Because once I looked in there and I saw that, I said, this thing is loaded. He's going to shoot me in my face.
Oh, you thought it was loaded?
That's why I grabbed it. That shit. I was like, hold on, let me take a look.
Okay. Yeah, all these firearms are unloaded.
They are unloaded. I just I didn't notice that before.
The safety first. Safety is paramount. We practice firearm safety. Even earlier we were showing each other like handguns and stuff. And when you receive a firearm, you want to clear it, make sure it's unloaded before you do anything with it. And you always, even an empty firearm, you point it in a safe direction.
I feel like almost when we do a firearms review, you should just say that, because you always see YouTubers, they say that because in the comments somebody's going to say something bizarre.
Right. Now these sights are adjustable to a point. You can move that back and forth a little bit to raise it up and down. But you know, you're limited. This is another firearm you would get. This is actually for my unborn son. This was given to him, and it's a really nice piece as far as, you know, his first rifle, because I never had something this cool. But you could buy these. We're going to leave a link in the description down below for all these firearms, but these price, the cheapest I seen was like $250, and Field and Streams, Cabela's, they sell them for around $350. So there's a little bit of pricing difference depending on where you get them. Most of you would probably be more familiar with the brass receiver style. It's called the Golden Boy. This is what's called the classic with the all black. It's simulated bluing. It's not bluing like the old firearms. It's more like a baked on like powder coating, and that's because it lasts longer. Bluing over time wears out. All these barrels are blued and stuff like that, but if you continuously clean them and stuff like that, if you practice clean firearms, you know, maintenance, then you're going to rub the bluing off. So that's why they do that nowadays. But to me, it's a nice looking rifle.
Now, a question.
I think this stock is fake wood.
Really?
I don't know if it's a wood. I'll have to look that up. It might be wood.
It might be wood. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be wood, but it's really smooth. So that's what makes me think it's more of a synthetic or maybe like a compressed wood. You know, like a manufactured wood.
Yeah. Now, tell me something here about about the lever. I've seen some that you can use because I feel like if I had gloves on, I couldn't fit my hand in it.
Yeah, so you can actually buy bigger levers. Not that this is designed for a kid. This is designed for shooters of all sizes. But you can actually buy a bigger looped lever, and those levers would be the style that you would typically see someone have if they were going to modify this gun. Usually the lever is the first thing, and that would be for the shooter who would use this in the cold with gloves on. The trigger port area is large. You can still fit a glove to finger in there, but as Jawad said, if you had gloves on, it would be kind of difficult to get 3 fingers in here. You could operate it with 2.
Okay.
If you had, you know, giant man hands. But
and are there any? I know you said this is for your unborn child, but are there any plans of like running a scope on it? Or are you going to be using it until then?
I don't think so. I think once Maverick is old enough to use this firearm, I'm going to teach him the basics first, the fundamentals of iron sights. That way he always has that to go back on if your optic either gets broken or fails. So I think I'm going to leave it like this when I teach him to shoot.
Do you know if the original rifles used this style?
They did not.
Guns? Okay.
The original rifles had like what's called a bead, which was just basically just like a little piece of metal that was round, almost like what's on the end of a shotgun.
Okay.
And then rifles before that didn't have anything. You just point it in the right direction. That's why Civil War soldiers and even during the Indian Wars they went shoulder to shoulder because the weapons were just inaccurate. Now the cap and ball guns, they did have some sights, but they were terrible. They weren't really that accurate. So once towards the end of the Civil War, there were some lever guns used in the Civil War, but not many. You didn't see them very often until 1870s when the Indian Wars. That's when you saw them more often. And then 1903, that's when it starts cartridges, and you know, most of the time I just, whether it's a handgun or a rifle, I just leave the action open. It's not going to fire.
Okay.
But
pretty cool.
So we're going to take each of these up to the range, and we're going to try to meticulously use firearms. We're going to try to meticulously use firearms fundamentals and get really accurate 5-shot groups for all of these rifles and do a real legitimate comparison. So we have a table set up there, and we're gonna be as careful as we can to do really good tight groups, and then we'll rate them later. So stay tuned, guys. We'll meet you up at the range.
So is there any kind of safety feature on this?
So what I found out so far, just with playing with the gun, it's not like a half-cock safety because it only goes a little bit. But if you pull the hammer back just ever so slightly, you'll hear one little click. And with that clicked, you can't depress the trigger. With it all the way pulled back, of course the trigger will be depressed. Now let me see here. If we get it into... That's interesting. There we go. If we get it into the safety, will it cycle? Alright, it'll still cycle. So with the safety on, you can cycle it, but user beware.
But no, it's full cock then.
It would be full cocked when you bring the lever back down and click it in. So again, as long as you're practicing firearm safety, it shouldn't be an issue. Keep the weapon pointed down range, finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Know what is not only your target, what's beyond your target, because you're responsible for that round when it leaves the muzzle. And then always, always, always yell ceasefire or freeze on the range if a situation becomes unsafe. Anything else? You think that?
No, I want to get out there and shoot it.
All right, so let's do that. All right, so now we're going to test the accuracy. A couple of the differences between the three weapons. Obviously, the lever action, you're going to have to pull off the peg every time you go to put a new round in the chamber, but that should be minimal. We're going to take extra careful consideration to firearms fundamentals, meaning slow breaths, methodical shots, slow trigger squeeze. We want to make sure we get as accurate a comparison as we can. Range is hot, camera's on. Remember, it's a lever gun, so every round, there you go.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but okay.
I did it too. The trigger is really smooth. Screaming liberal. Now we're going to try the Ruger 1022. Okay, we're going to go down range and test the accuracy, or check the accuracy of the Ruger 1022. Too close. All right, less than an inch. Shoots pretty good. All right, now we're going to check the grouping with the Henry. Let's see, we got Jawad's grouping with the 1022. My grouping with the 1022. my grouping with the Henry. Mind you, the Henry has iron sights. I want to say this was your grouping with the Henry, right? From earlier. This was also a grouping from the Henry from Jawad.
Yeah.
Very consistent. I actually think it's really good, given the fact that it has iron sights.
I'm not going to make any excuses other than just saying I'm not a skilled shooter.
Yeah, it takes practice. You know, you gotta get better.
Very few times a year I shoot. It's usually the time of the year. It's usually anywhere from
So now we'll shoot the Marlin and wrap this up. Okay, we're gonna put it on safe. This is my gun. I shoot it all the time. We're gonna let Jawad fire some as well. Whenever you're ready, there's a push safety. There's already one in the chamber, and you're not shooting the back.
I wouldn't even edit that out of the video. Okay, it's one
Push
in
it
the
with,
chamber.
yeah, push it with your finger. There you go.
Not bad at all.
Okay, so now we're gonna look at our groups. This is my group for the 1022. Jawad's group. This was my group for the Henry. Ooh, that
wasn't my Henry.
This was your Henry grouping. This was my Marlin 60 group. And impressively enough, look at that. That's Jawad's Marlin 60 group.
Yeah, I really enjoyed shooting that. Like I really, it's almost like I feel like I should get one.
It's like, it's so accurate. It's like an extension of your hand.
Well, I don't know if my hands are that accurate, but I just know that it's easy to shoot. I just had to take my time, and it wasn't intimidating at all. Not that a 22 would be intimidating, but I mean like the pressure of hitting it properly, and,
right?
Looking cool.
And then, guys, once you get your firearm dialed down like this, marksmanship adjustment is over at that point, and then you can have some fun with some new bolt targets or some self-sealing hanging bottles. It's almost like going to the arcade, like back in the day where you plinked. But these they're not metal, so they don't shoot fragments all over the place. They're self-seal, so they can take thousands and thousands of rounds. So I do promote them. Alright, so that wraps up our video showing you a comparison of 3 different types of 22s in the rifle configuration. So I'd like to thank Jawad for joining me here today. It allows you to get a comparison, different types of shooters. He never claims, just like I never claim to be a professional or an expert in anything. It's just us, our opinion, and our skill set. So we're showing you the difference maybe of someone a little bit more experienced, someone less experienced, and what you can expect. I was in the Marine Corps. A lot of my marksmanship came before the Marine Corps because I hunted, and my father was real meticulous on marksmanship. So that's where I gained my skill, and I've been shooting for a long time.
I grew up in Brooklyn, and we threw 40 bottles at people, and that's how I got my marksmanship experience.
All right. So to sum it up, we had the Marlin 60, which is here, the Ruger 1022, and then the Henry Classic chambered in 22 long rifle. What'd you think of the Henry?
Okay, so I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I feel like if it had a longer barrel, and I don't necessarily feel an optic because my eyes are really bad. I have really poor vision, so the optic kind of helped. But I would like to learn how to shoot it to know that I was a good shooter, and then learn to have an optic on.
So you were saying, do you feel it needs an optic?
I think I would shoot a lot more if I could get one with a longer barrel, and to feel comfortable with that, and then upgrade to something with an optic. So overall, I definitely enjoyed it, but not as much as I thought I would.
I would actually not disagree, because we all have our own opinion, but I would actually say leave it alone, and I would specifically use the lever action Henry Classic for plinking in a situation like this where you can have like a shooting gallery. With that being said, you don't need the distance.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not trying for 25, 50, 100 yard accuracy at that point.
Yeah.
You're just having fun, trying to, like I said, being a little bit nostalgic by having a weapon that reminds you of something old, just like cowboy action shooting. They're all modern weapons, they just have a old school flavor. So that's what I would use the Henry for. It's just a different firearm for a different application.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't have that much experience with firearms. So.
Okay. Now the Ruger 1022.
I definitely enjoyed it more than the Henry.
Due to the semi-auto?
Yes. I don't think the semi-auto. Not necessarily because of it. I think it just felt a little bit more refined. I found this a little bit of an issue with the Marlin with the lever itself, where it was kind of in between.
You mean the Henry?
Yes, I'm sorry, with the Henry, where it was kind of in between levering, essentially.
Like a locked in place.
Yeah.
Once the round was chambered and it was in the upright position, like it didn't feel locked.
It didn't feel. It felt like it was almost leaning down a bit.
Yeah.
So I was constantly adjusting my hand to make sure it was up.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But the Ruger, I think, was more of a step up from that.
The fact that it has a magazine over a tube.
That was definitely a plus for me.
You have more rounds downrange. You could do higher capacity, because that magazine we were shooting was 25 rounds, but you can also get drums.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, just a lot more fun, a lot more plinking fun, faster paced shooting. Anything else on the 1022? It's a little short. I don't mean to make fun of him. We were using a shooting bag to prop up to enhance our accuracy a little bit. So
okay,
I see where
you're going with this.
The fact that it was a little shorter, Jihad was shooting through the bag because he didn't realize the end of the muzzle kind of was underneath the crease in the material. So he shot through my shooting bag a couple times, which is perfectly fine. I just found it funny.
No, because I looked downrange and I'm like, I can't see any rounds landing anywhere. I know my eyesight's not that bad.
It threw the shots off a little bit.
Who knows where they ended up?
Yeah, once we pulled the bag back and got the end of the muzzle over the bag, so he wasn't shooting into something, a lot more accurate.
Yeah.
All right. That being said, the Marlin 60.
This, by far, out of the three, is the one that I enjoyed the most. I feel like it was properly set up. Like, I don't think I would do anything to it. Like, the length and just the feeling of it in my hand.
Is it heavy?
No.
Would you think a different stock, a synthetic stock, would suit that more?
I don't know too much about any of that. I just know that exactly the way this is something that I would appreciate shooting on a regular basis. It reminds me of my many years ago. My father had a Remington 700, I think, in 3006.
Yep.
And it obviously doesn't have the same type of recoil and all that, but it reminds me of it, the function of it, just how it's very smooth, and it's when you're pointing it. But obviously he would have it mounted on a sandbag,
right?
So it reminded me of that. So
yeah, I like to mix it up a little bit. A lot of times I'm shooting that from a sitting position. I've really never needed to go prone. If you could see way in the background, that deck, that's 75 yards. I've shot it right off the deck up into this target up here. Pinpoint accuracy. It's a really nice shooting weapon. I don't think I would ever switch it to a synthetic stock because I think the wood stock balances it out really well. I think a synthetic stock might make it lighter, and then that would bring the front. It would make it front heavy.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's what I feel. I like it the way it is. I love it.
I think I like it.
Put it on firearm safety, remember? All right, so my picks, I love the high capacity of the 1022. It is a more modern weapon. I still like my Marlin 60. If you can't do it with 15 rounds, you can't do it with 50 rounds. So number one for me would be Marlin. Number two would be the Henry. I love the Henry. And then the 1022. Still an exceptional weapon.
Hold this really quick.
Yeah, we'll leave a link in the description where you can buy all these firearms. Most of these are available. Maybe that would be a little harder to find, but
very much harder.
Marlin 60, Ruger 1022, you can find pretty much at any gun shop. Even if you're going to the bigger distributors like Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, Field and Stream, Dick's, they all sell these firearms. So
one thing too is that if you want to be notified about things that Palmetto carries, they have a thing where you can hit the notification and put your email in, and they will message you. I just promise you is that when they message you, you got to go right on the website and buy it immediately, because if you give it a day, they're gone. So
nice. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Jawad for coming on the channel. This is Josh from the 570, and we'll see you next time.